Hello film fans and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, on this week of Frozen Planet, the team headed to the tundra and the boreal forest for what is the last proper kind of episode of the series. The next episode, as far as I could make out from the trailer for this week's, is looking more at the scientists and about the sort of the science of global warming, and it's as sort of a conclusion to the series, which focuses more on the environment than it does on the wildlife. So, what did I make of this episode then? Well, there were some scenes that I really enjoyed. I think it's fair to say that unlike last week, which really I thought pushed the boat out in terms of what the sort of stuff it showed you things that I'd never even considered before, never even heard about. This one was a bit more of a sort of typical kind of Arctic-y documentary, shall we say. I mean, it showed me some stuff that I hadn't ever seen before, a lot of stuff that I had, but it showed you the stuff I had seen, if that makes any sense, in interesting ways. So, what did I think of particular scenes then? Well, I particularly enjoyed the wolf hunt, which starts right at the beginning. I think it's fair to say they started the episode with a bang, and the scene with that super pack of wolves, about 25 strong, I think it says in one point, hunting quite a large herd of bison was brilliant. It really reminded me of, the stories you hear about sort of early settlers in America and how they reported seeing, like obviously huge herds of bison, which you could, ride past in a day and not come to the end of them. But also talks about how they used to see large packs of wolves, and it's kind of a sort of mindset that we sort of lost, because obviously most of those early settlers shot lots of wolves, which means that now there are relatively few of them, and obviously the environment around them has changed. But yeah, it felt to me very much like a throwback kind of thing. You almost back in time, seeing this kind of age-old battle between two adversaries, which hasn't really changed for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So I really enjoyed it, and also I think it's probably the best shot wolf hunt I've ever seen. The only one that comes close to, and I think it was Planet Earth 2, but I might have got that wrong, was a very similar kind of wolf hunt, which they shot a lot from the air, again with helicopters. And that's pretty good, but I think this one is even better. Jamie McPherson, who was the principal cameraman for this one, is an absolutely fantastic artist. I really enjoy seeing his work on wildlife documentaries, and he really does a good job. He uses, obviously, the helicopter kind of gyroscopic cameras, which they often use and have since Planet Earth. But what I really like about the way he used it was, most of the time you see it from a distance, and I'll talk about that a bit later. They kind of like to show you a kind of long distance shot, so to get the scale of kind of the chase, and you sort of see all the herds of animals kind of swaying about. And you see this a lot in the original Planet Earth with wolves hunting caribou calves, where they really shot from quite a long way away, and you really get a sense of the kind of the scale of the tundra. And then you see the sort of the wolf and the caribou calf right in the centre of the shot, comparatively small. This one, though, Jamie McPherson went in really close, and I think I prefer that kind of style. You really get a sense of the kind of the power of the bison as they charge through the snow, and he must have got quite close, and certainly his camera filming technique is brilliant. You really get a sense of kind of the struggle when the wolves sort of latch onto the end of the bison and grab it, its kind of haunches, and then when the bison tries to kick them off, you really get a sense of the kind of the danger. There were several times where I really winced when a wolf got kicked. It felt very intense and kind of visceral. And also, a shout out has to be said for the secondary camera team, which actually went in on foot and hiked in. And so some of the shots you see are obviously from the helicopter and the camera crew up there, and most of them in fact. But then there are some as well which you can actually see have been filmed from the ground, comparatively long distance away, obviously, to avoid disturbing the animals. But nevertheless, I really appreciate the two different camera angles that they got for it. It was excellent, a really good idea, and you see from the making of behind the scenes bit at the end that it was really hard work for them. Incidentally, I always wonder with those making of documentaries, I'd love to be the producer on them, because there must be a point where they have to say, right, Jamie, could you just look a bit sad because the weather's nasty, and then I'll film you looking sad. We just need this for the making of bit. I really wonder how well that goes down in the kind of that actual sort of spirit of the moment, shall we say, when they're all thinking, well, are we going to get any shots at all? And somebody has to say, oh, could you look a bit sad, just so we can film it for the making of. Anyway, I digress. The second bit I really enjoyed was the bit with the Lapland Bumblebee Queen. And I think the reason I really enjoyed that part, well, in fact, actually, somebody at work told me about it. I didn't really bring up the subject of Frozen Planet, but they said to me, "Did you see Frozen Planet on Sunday?" And they then proceeded to rave about this bit with the bumblebee, which is interesting because obviously it's in a a documentary which has got wolves and bears and snowy owls, but that was what really appealed to them. And it is an absolutely fantastic bit where you see this Lapland bumblebee queen slowly wake up after the winter. She actually sort of vibrates her body to kind of uses her flight muscles to kind of generate heat. And this is an incredible scene as you see the frost gradually kind of defrost from her body as she's kind of in this like hibernation state. And then she gradually wakes up, and then you see her go around and sort of begin to sort of start her own little colony. And it's absolutely fantastic. I particularly like the bit it shows you how she collects nectar from the flowers, and then she creates this little pot of kind of out of beeswax, and then puts the nectar in it. So when she's brooding her young and keeping them warm so they don't freeze to death, she then has got something to drink from, so she can stay there for longer, which I thought was really cool, and a kind of look at insects you don't normally see. We tend to think of insects as kind of stupid, don't we? Because, I mean, obviously they haven't got the reasoning power of other animals, such as, say, ourselves. But that doesn't mean to say that they aren't ingenious little creatures. I mean, that is really, really... I hesitate to use the word clever, because obviously it's more instinctive behaviour than actually learned. But it certainly is fascinating, and it was really, really well shot. They got really good kind of... close-up shots in like a filming burrow where you see the bumblebees all up nice and close. It's absolutely beautifully shot. It kind of reminds me of the series, the second series of Life they did in sort of like 2000 and I think it was 2009, 2010, where they had an absolutely fantastic episode on insects in that, when they again use this kind of macro technology to get really close and personal. And this was very similar. I really enjoyed it. It kind of brought it, a kind of a small scale thing which must happen all over the tundra, and it really brought it to life. So I really enjoyed that. And then I suppose that the last thing that really stood out to me was the bit with the reindeer in it. Or more specifically, the bit with the I say grizzly bear. I think it was a brown bear because it was actually shot, I think, in Siberia. But it nevertheless was absolutely fantastic bit. I mean, we've already seen brown bears hunt muskoxen and the first episode of the series, and then we see them hunt reindeer calves in this one. I really quite enjoyed it. It wasn't a very long scene, but you really get a sense once again of the power of bears generally. I particularly enjoyed the way you see the difference between, say, a bear hunting and wolves hunting. Wolves obviously hunt in packs. That's obviously pretty self-evident. But wolves kind of hunt for long periods of time. They said that the bison hunt they filmed took about a day from start to finish. So it's kind of a battle of endurance between the two animals. Bears hunt more intelligently and obviously on their own. And I really like the way that you can see the bear sort of actually physically searching for reindeer calves as he goes through the herd. He kind of charges, sees the animal scatter, and then he's clearly looking, and he was actually standing up on his hind legs at one point, to get a better view. And then you gradually see his nose come into play as he gets closer and closer to this calf, and then you see finally the kill from a long way away. It was filmed very similarly to the caribou scenes that I mentioned earlier in Planet Earth, and I think partly the reason they do that is just because they don't want to disturb the animals, but also I think they didn't really want to show it close up, and I can kind of understand that. Although to be fair, I think the muskox scene earlier on was more harrowing, so it may personally just been a personal kind of camera decision, and it did look good. Kind of, you really got the sense of kind of doom and inevitability when it kind of zooms out and you just see the bear and the calf right in the center of the frame and nothing else there. It's like it's been completely deserted and there's no escape. It kind of brought home the kind of inevitability of the scene in a really good sort of pictorial way. So yeah, that was my review of Frozen Planet episode, I think 5 now, isn't it? Yeah, 5. overall, I really enjoyed it. I mean, as I said, I don't think it particularly pushed the boat out in many ways, but it certainly developed a lot of stuff that I've seen before and filmed them in kind of new, particularly more beautiful ways. So yeah, I'm obviously looking forward to next week. I think next week is going to be a bit different. Obviously, it's looking more at the people studying climate change. I mean, climate change has already been quite a strong theme throughout the series anyway, so it's not really surprising that they're focusing more on that specifically. There was a lovely shot I liked when it showed like a female scientist, I think from the air, in kind of like I don't know exactly what it was, but it looked like the kind of a bit like a gun turret on the back of a sort of like World War II bomber. I'm sure that's not what it is, but it looked a bit like it. And I thought when I saw that shot, I thought, wow, that's really beautiful the way they've kind of framed that. But also I sort of thought it really reminded me of something like Star Trek. And I don't really know why, but it's just the way it looked from, you could see the kind of the glacier in the background of the window and the scientists sort of leaning up against one side of it. And it just reminded me kind of people right at the ends of kind of existence, which in a way I suppose is kind of the closest thing we've got to Star Trek on our planet anyway. You know, these places they're filming in are really wild and inaccessible. They're kind of the last wildernesses that you get kind of on Earth. So yeah, it kind of really brought home to me the fact that these scientists they're going to be looking at next week, I mean, it could potentially be either quite dull or really exciting, because obviously they're in these really treacherous kind of environments. It depends kind of how they look at it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, because it's something a bit different as well. You don't generally see in BBC wildlife documentaries them focus too much on people. Even if they look at, say, conservation issues, they generally focus on the animals, not the people studying them. So that's going to be quite fascinating and interesting to see how they approach it. Anyway, that was the Sherlockian. Thanks very much for watching. Please leave a like, or if you feel like subscribing to the channel, I'll be very grateful. Also, if you've got any other ideas for me to review, please put them in the comment section. I'm also now on Twitter. There's a link to my Twitter profile in the description, so feel free to join me on there if you want to, and hear my witterings about documentaries and science and life in general. Yeah, but thanks very much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.